In this segment, this last half hour of the show, we're going to talk about Congress, and I want to go back to the general discussion which we had, and I'll ask both Julie and Mark this question. Last time I checked, only 13% of the American public approved of the job that Congress is doing. And I'd like to ask Julie and Mark to tell me why they think Congress is so unpopular. Julie, you want to start?
Sure. There's a number of reasons. The first being they're the most ineffective Congress in history. Not only they're not addressing, the most pressing problems that Americans are facing, from jobs to the economy and everything else, but they're spending, the precious time and resources there simply trying to either vote to repeal Obamacare for the 100th time. There's still yet more Benghazi hearings to go for, and that's it. The unfortunate part, though, is because of how bad things are gotten, Americans are having a hard time distinguishing between Democrats and Republicans, primarily because of some of the economy is coming back. We had great jobs report. Unemployment is down, but it's a bit of a jobless recovery. And again, the glitches with the Obamacare site are still sort of remaining in people's minds, even though we've hit an all-time high. We've got 8 million people signed up. The rate of the uninsured is lowest since '08. So these things, it just takes a long time for people to sort of translate into that who's doing right. But when Congress makes such a mess, it's sort of hard for anyone to distinguish.
Mark, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think Julie hits on a lot of important points. One of the other problems is, you have the districts are so heavily gerrymandered that, something that one of your guests in hour one spoke effectively to is that you have a lot of districts that are so politically tilted one way or the other that you don't have much common ground, and they are sending out these candidates that they say, we don't want you to compromise at all, and if we do, we're going to vote you out. You see especially in the upcoming midterms, Brad, one of the things you were alluding to was how a lot of Congress people, especially on the right, are afraid of being primaried from the Tea Party if they don't do exactly what the far right wing of their party wants to on a lot of different issues. So they're kind of hamstrung from, doing any sort of compromise. One example being what, you and Julie and Joe were talking about in the first half hour, which is immigration reform. So I think that's one of the reasons that they've been so ineffective. And then you have this wing of the party who is completely happy with not getting anything done because they see it as making it so that President Obama, on his watch, there's less things that are done, and then it can be attributed to him. They're not really worried if they get dragged down as long as the president gets dragged down with them. And that's really how I think a lot of them believe, unfortunately, and unfortunately for the country.
Okay. As you mentioned, Mark, in hour one, we had a former member of Congress, Sam Coopersmith from Arizona, on the show. And Sam, while recognizing Congress's faults, said essentially that Americans have only themselves to blame for having such a lousy Congress. And his rationale was if Americans paid more attention, the Congress would work better because members of Congress have the feeling that they can pretty much do anything they damn well please because they know the public isn't paying much attention, which is a little lecture I give to my students at the beginning of every semester. There's a price to pay for not paying attention, and God knows we are paying it. But let me ask you one question. I'd make the argument, just to play devil's advocate here, Julie, that Americans voted for divided government. So if we have divided government, and that's the reason for congressional action, shouldn't we just blame the voters? They could fix this problem itself but they could have by electing a Democratic House of Representatives in 2012, and they didn't.
Yeah, that's easy to say when voters don't really have much of a voice now. As you know, thanks to the Supreme Court and Citizens United, corporations are people too, and sometimes corporations are bigger people. Sometimes corporations have louder voices, and it's very hard for voters to weigh in when their voices are drowned out by all of that money. And it's hard for them to weigh in when, like the gerrymandering that was discussed earlier is only going to get worse because we have Republicans in control of most of the state houses, and they have been much more aggressive in gerrymandering than Democrats have. So that's only going to get worse. It's not. We do not have an equal playing field anymore. It's really we're voters competing against powerful corporations.